James Wilson sat on the cold park bench, pulling his thin jacket tighter around his shoulders. The morning air was chilly, and his old bones felt every bit of the cold. He was 62 years old, but looked much older. Life on the streets had worn him down. James had been homeless for 8 months now. Before that, he had a small apartment, but when the rent went up again, he couldn't pay it anymore. His small veteran's check wasn't enough. Now the park was his home during the day, and he slept at the shelter when there was room. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small photo. It showed a younger James in his Marine uniform, standing tall and proud. Those days felt like another lifetime. He had served his country for 12 years, including 2 tough tours in Vietnam. Back then, he thought his future was set. No one told him how hard it would be to find work when he got back, or how the nightmares would make it hard to keep a job. A few people walked by, most not even looking at him. James was used to being invisible. He didn't blame them. People were busy with their own lives. Still, a simple nod or smile would be nice sometimes, just to remind him that he was still a human being. The park was in a nice part of town. James liked it here because it was clean and quiet. The police usually left him alone as long as he didn't bother anyone. And James never bothered anyone. He just sat, watched the birds, and tried to stay warm. Around 10 o'clock, the park started to get busier. Mothers with strollers walked along the paths. Business people hurried through on their way to meetings. James watched them all from his bench. Then he saw her, the woman in the expensive coat who lived in one of the big houses across from the park. James had seen her before. She always looked at him like he was trash. He called her the clipboard lady in his mind because she always seemed to be checking things and complaining to people. Today she was walking her small, fluffy dog on a pink leash. When she spotted James, she stopped. She stared at him with narrow eyes, then pulled out her phone. James could tell she was upset by the way she kept looking at him while talking on her phone. James sighed. He knew what was happening. It had happened before, in other parks, in other towns. Someone would see him, get scared or angry that a homeless person was in their space, and call the police. James never did anything wrong. Just being homeless was enough to make some people afraid. He thought about leaving, finding another spot for the day. But he was tired, and his leg was hurting worse than usual. The old injury from the war never really healed right. Besides, he had every right to be in the public park. So James stayed on his bench. He straightened his old Marine jacket the best he could and made sure his few belongings were neatly tucked in his worn backpack. If the police were coming, he wanted to look as decent as possible. 20 minutes later, a police car pulled up to the park entrance. 2 officers got out and looked around. The woman pointed directly at James, talking quickly and waving her hands. James took a deep breath and sat up straight, the way he had been taught in the Marines. No matter what happened, he would face it with dignity. The officers started walking toward him. James noticed that one was younger, maybe in his 30s. The other was older, closer to James's age. They walked slowly, not rushing like they thought he was dangerous. That was a good sign. Maybe today would be different. Maybe. The 2 police officers walked across the park grass toward James. The woman with the fluffy dog hurried behind them, still talking loudly. James could hear bits of what she was saying. He's been here for hours, scaring people. Probably dangerous. Shouldn't be allowed. James kept his hands where the officers could see them. He knew how these things could go wrong fast. Years on the streets had taught him to be careful around police. The older officer reached James first. His name tag said, Rodriguez. He had kind eyes that didn't match his serious face. "Good morning, sir," Officer Rodriguez said. His voice was calm and respectful. "How are you doing today?" Before James could answer, the woman pushed forward. She wore an expensive coat and had perfect nails. Her dog yapped from inside her large purse. "That's him," she said, pointing at James like he was a criminal. "I told you on the phone. He's been sitting here watching people. Children use this park." The younger officer, whose name tag read Chen, turned to the woman. "Ma'am, please step back and let us handle this." James looked at Officer Rodriguez. "I'm just sitting here, sir, not causing any trouble." Officer Rodriguez nodded. "May I see some ID, please?" James slowly reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his worn wallet. Inside was his veteran's ID card. He handed it to the officer. "James Wilson," Officer Rodriguez read aloud. Then he noticed something on the ID, Marine Corps. James nodded. "Yes, sir. 12 years of service. 2 tours in Vietnam." The woman made a loud noise. "I don't care if he says he's a veteran. He could be lying. He shouldn't be here scaring decent people." Officer Chen turned to her. "Ma'am, please lower your voice." Officer Rodriguez looked more closely at James's jacket. It was old and patched in places, but James kept it as clean as he could. The officer noticed the Marine Corps emblem sewn on the pocket. "Are those your dog tags?" Officer Rodriguez asked, pointing to the metal tags hanging from James's neck. "Yes, sir," James said. He pulled them out to show the officer. "Never take them off." Officer Rodriguez handed the ID back to James. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He stood straight and gave James a respectful nod. "Thank you for your service, Mr. Wilson." The woman's mouth fell open. "Are you serious? You're thanking him? He's a homeless bum." Officer Rodriguez turned to face her. His voice was still calm, but firmer now. "Ma'am, this man served our country honorably, and he has every right to be in this public park as long as he's not breaking any laws, which he is not." The woman's face turned red. "But he's clearly homeless. He looks dirty. It's not appropriate." "Being homeless is not a crime," Officer Chen said. "And Mr. Wilson appears to be keeping to himself, not bothering anyone." The woman pointed at James again. "He has a bag. Who knows what's in there? Drugs? Weapons?" Officer Rodriguez looked at James. "Sir, would you mind if we take a quick look in your bag? You don't have to agree, but it might help clear things up." James nodded. "Go ahead. Nothing to hide." He handed his old backpack to the officer. Inside were some clean socks, a water bottle, a small Bible, some papers in a plastic folder, and half a sandwich wrapped in paper. Officer Rodriguez handed the bag back. "Thank you, sir." The woman wasn't giving up. "Well, there must be some law against loitering or public nuisance or something." Officer Chen shook his head. "Sitting on a park bench is not loitering, ma'am." Just then, an older man with gray hair walked into the park. He wore a doctor's coat and carried a coffee cup. When he saw the police talking to James, he hurried over. "James, is everything okay?" the man asked, looking worried. James looked surprised to see him. "Dr. Williams." The doctor looked at the officers. "Is there a problem here?" "This man is my patient." Dr. Williams stood there in his white coat, a look of concern on his face. He was in his 60s with kind eyes behind round glasses. He looked at the officers, then at the angry woman, trying to understand what was happening. "I'm Dr. Thomas Williams from the Veterans Clinic downtown," he said to the officers. "James is one of my patients. Is everything okay here?" Officer Rodriguez explained. "We received a call about a suspicious person in the park. We're just talking to Mr. Wilson." The woman stepped forward again. "He shouldn't be allowed to stay here. This is a nice neighborhood. People like him bring down property values." Dr. Williams looked at the woman with surprise. "People like him? You mean decorated war veterans?" The woman crossed her arms. "You know what I mean. Homeless people. They're dangerous." "James isn't dangerous," Dr. Williams said firmly. "He's a good man who served this country, and he's going through a tough time, like many veterans." Officer Chen took out his notepad. "Dr. Williams, do you know Mr. Wilson well?" "Yes, I do," the doctor answered. "He's been my patient for about 6 months. We're working on getting his VA benefits sorted out. There was a mix-up with his paperwork." James looked down at his worn shoes. He didn't like people talking about him like he wasn't there, but he was used to it. When you're homeless, people often talk over you, not to you. Dr. Williams turned to James. Actually, I've been looking for you, James. I have good news about your application. I was going to check the shelter later today. The woman made a loud huffing sound. So he admits he's homeless. You can't just live in the park. Officer Rodriguez looked at her calmly. Ma'am, at no point has Mr. Wilson said he's living in the park. He's simply sitting on a public bench, which is allowed. Dr. Williams added, James stays at the Veterans Shelter on 4th Street. He comes to the park during the day because it's peaceful, and because the shelter doesn't allow people to stay inside during daytime hours. The woman wasn't backing down. Well, he looks dirty and scary. Other people use this park too, you know. James finally spoke up. His voice was quiet but clear. I'm sorry if I scared you, ma'am. That was never my intention. The woman was not expecting this. She blinked, then quickly said, Well, you should find somewhere else to go. Officer Chen looked at his partner, then at James. Sir, you have every right to be here. You're not breaking any laws. A small crowd had started to gather nearby. People were watching, wondering what was happening. A young mother with a stroller stopped a safe distance away. An older man walking his dog slowed down to listen. Dr. Williams put his hand on James's shoulder. James, I was on my way to the clinic. Why don't you come with me? We can talk about your benefits application. I have some paperwork for you to sign. James nodded slowly. Maybe it was better to leave. He didn't want any more trouble. As he started gathering his few things, Officer Rodriguez took out a small card from his pocket. He handed it to James. This is the card for Officer Ramirez. She's our department's veterans liaison. She might be able to help with your situation. James took the card carefully. Thank you, sir. The woman watched with her mouth open in shock. You're giving him your card? Are you serious? Officer Chen turned to her. Ma'am, we appreciate citizens reporting suspicious activity, but sitting on a park bench is not suspicious. And in the future, please consider that many homeless individuals are veterans who served our country. Dr. Williams helped James stand up. James's right leg was stiff, an old war injury that never healed right. The doctor picked up James's backpack for him. Ready to go? Dr. Williams asked. As they started walking away, a strange thing happened. The older man with the dog, who had been watching everything, stepped forward. He looked directly at James. Marine Corps, huh? The man asked. I was Army myself. Vietnam, 68 to 70. James straightened up a bit. Marines, 67 to 79. The older man nodded with respect. Welcome home, brother. For the first time that day, James smiled. The woman watched in disbelief as people began to treat James with respect. This was not how she thought things would go. She had called the police expecting them to remove the homeless man from her park. Instead, they were treating him like he mattered. This is ridiculous, she said loudly. I pay high taxes to live in this neighborhood. I shouldn't have to share the park with people like him. She waved her hand at James as if he were an annoying bug. The older veteran who had greeted James turned to look at her. People like him. You mean heroes who fought for this country while others stayed safe at home. The woman's face turned red. I didn't mean. Yes, you did, the man said. He wasn't angry, just stating a fact. I know exactly what you meant. Officer Rodriguez stepped between them. Let's all stay calm here. Man, as we've explained, Mr. Wilson has every right to be here. By now, more people had gathered. A teenage boy on a skateboard had stopped to watch. A couple walking their dog stood nearby. Two women who had been jogging paused their run. Dr. Williams still had his hand on James's shoulder. Come on, James. Let's head to the clinic. As they started to walk away, Officer Chen called out, Mr. Wilson, one moment, please. He walked over to James and spoke quietly. "Sir, do you have a cell phone where we can reach you?" James shook his head. "No, sir. Can't afford one." The officer nodded. "If you need anything or have any problems, you can leave a message for me or Officer Rodriguez at the station." He wrote down a number on another card and handed it to James. The woman couldn't believe what she was seeing. "Are you giving him your personal number now? This is completely unprofessional." Officer Rodriguez turned to her. "Ma'am, we're just doing our job. Part of that job is helping citizens, including those who served our country." His voice was still professional, but had a new edge to it. The woman opened her mouth to argue more, but then noticed something. The people watching were not on her side. They were looking at her with disappointment and even anger. She suddenly realized she was alone in her views. A young mother with a stroller spoke up. "My father was a veteran. He had trouble after he came home too. These men deserve our respect, not our judgment." The teenage boy on the skateboard nodded. "My uncle was in Iraq. He said the hardest part wasn't the war. It was coming home and feeling forgotten." James looked surprised. He wasn't used to people standing up for him. Usually, when someone complained about him being somewhere, others would either ignore what was happening or agree that he should leave. Dr. Williams smiled. "Ready to go, James. I have your test results too. Your blood pressure is looking better." James nodded. As they walked toward the park exit, people moved aside to let them pass. Several nodded respectfully to James. One man even gave him a small salute. The woman stood with her arms crossed, her small dog now barking from her purse. She watched as the officers returned to their patrol car without removing James from the park. This was not the outcome she had expected. Officer Rodriguez paused before getting into the car. "Officers Ramirez and Johnson will be on patrol this afternoon. If you have any real concerns, don't hesitate to call the non-emergency number." The emphasis on real was subtle but clear. As James and Dr. Williams reached the street, the doctor pointed to his car. "I'll drag you to the clinic. And afterward, I want to talk to you about a new program we're starting. It's for veterans who need housing." James stopped walking. "Housing?" Dr. Williams nodded. "Yes, temporary apartments while you get back on your feet. The VA finally approved our grant proposal." For the second time that day, James smiled. Then he noticed something. The woman was watching them from the park entrance, her face unreadable. James did something unexpected. He gave her a small, polite nod. The woman quickly looked away and hurried in the opposite direction, pulling her barking dog along. Dr. Williams drove an old blue sedan. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and ran well. James sat in the front seat, his backpack on his lap. He wasn't used to being in cars much anymore. "Thank you for the ride," James said quietly. Dr. Williams smiled. "Of course. I'm glad I found you today. I've been wanting to tell you about this new housing program." As they drove, James looked out the window. They passed nice houses, stores, and busy people. It had been a long time since James had a normal life like that. "So this housing program," James said. "What's it about?" Dr. Williams turned down a street heading toward downtown. "It's called Veterans First. The VA finally approved funding after 3 years of us applying. It provides temporary apartments for veterans who need housing, plus help with job training and permanent housing searches." James looked down at his hands. They were rough and weathered. "I don't know, Doc. I've tried programs before. There are always too many forms, too many rules, and not enough spots for everyone who needs help." "This one's different," Dr. Williams said. "I helped design it. Less paperwork, more actual help. And you'd qualify right away with your service record." They stopped at a red light. James noticed a woman walking by with shopping bags. She looked a lot like his daughter, Sarah. He hadn't seen Sarah in 5 years. After he lost his job and started drinking, she had stopped talking to him. He couldn't blame her. "Does the program help with other things?" James asked. "Like maybe reconnecting with family?" Dr. Williams looked surprised. "Actually, Yes, we have social workers who can help with that if you want. The light turned green, and they continued driving. The buildings got taller as they entered downtown. Soon they reached the Veterans Clinic. It was an old brick building with a flag out front. Inside, the clinic was busy but organized. Nurses moved between rooms. Veterans of all ages sat in the waiting area. Some looked fine on the outside. Others had visible injuries. James knew that many had wounds that couldn't be seen. Dr. Williams led James to his office. It was small but comfortable, with pictures of his family on the desk. He motioned for James to sit down. "Let me get your file," Dr. Williams said, turning to his computer. "While I do that, Luis from the front desk will bring you a sandwich and coffee. I bet you haven't eaten much today." James started to say he was fine, but his stomach growled loudly. Dr. Williams smiled and picked up his phone. "Louise, can you bring in the usual for Mr. Wilson?" "Thanks." A minute later, a kind-faced woman brought in a tray with a sandwich, an apple, and hot coffee. James thanked her quietly. He tried to eat slowly, but he was very hungry. As James ate, Dr. Williams pulled up some forms on his computer. "So about this housing program. The apartment is small, but it's clean and safe. You'd have your own bathroom and a small kitchen. The building has a shared laundry room." James took a sip of coffee. It was good and hot. "What's the catch, Doc?" "There's always a catch." Dr. Williams shook his head. "No catch. You need to stay sober, which I know you've been doing for 8 months now. You need to meet with a caseworker once a week, and you need to actively look for work or attend job training." "And how long can I stay?" James asked. "Up to 6 months," Dr. Williams said. "But most veterans find permanent housing before that. The success rate is over 80%. James finished his sandwich and thought about it. A real place to sleep, a shower whenever he wanted, a door he could close. It sounded too good to be true. There was a knock at the office door, and a tall woman in a police uniform came in. She had short gray hair and a kind face. "Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Williams," she said. Then she saw James. "Oh, you must be Mr. Wilson. I'm Officer Ramirez, the Veterans Liaison with the police department. Officer Rodriguez called me about what happened in the park today." James sat up straighter. "Am I in trouble?" Officer Ramirez smiled and shook her head. "Not at all. I came to apologize for how you were treated and to see if I can help with anything." Officer Ramirez sat down in the chair next to James. She had kind eyes but a serious face. The 3 stars on her uniform showed she was not a regular officer but someone with rank. "Mr. Wilson, I want you to know that the department takes the fair treatment of all citizens very seriously," she said, "especially our veterans." James nodded but didn't speak. He was still not sure why this high-ranking officer would come to see him personally. Officer Ramirez continued. "Officer Rodriguez told me what happened in the park. That woman had no right to treat you that way." "I'm used to it," James said quietly. "Well, you shouldn't have to be," Officer Ramirez replied. She took out a small notebook. "The reason I'm here is twofold. First, to check on your well-being. And second, to tell you about some resources we have." Dr. Williams smiled. "I was just telling James about the Veterans First Housing Program." "That's excellent," Officer Ramirez said. "And I can add something to that. Our department has a job opening for a part-time maintenance worker at the police station. It's reserved for a veteran." James looked up in surprise. "A job?" Officer Ramirez nodded. "Yes, 20 hours a week to start. Cleaning, simple repairs, taking care of the grounds. The pay isn't amazing, but it's steady work with good people." James couldn't believe what he was hearing. In one day, he had gone from being treated like trash in the park to being offered housing and a job. It seemed too good to be true. "Why me?" James asked. "You don't even know me." Officer Ramirez looked at him steadily. "Because Officer Rodriguez is a good judge of character. And because we need more people like you, people who understand service and duty." Dr. Williams leaned forward. This is a perfect combination, James. The housing program plus this job would give you a real fresh start. James took a deep breath. He had been disappointed so many times before. Programs that promised help but never delivered. Jobs that disappeared as soon as people learned he had been homeless. Hope was a dangerous thing on the streets. I don't know what to say, James finally said. Say yes, Dr. Williams urged gently. Officer Ramirez added, the job starts next Monday. That gives you time to get settled in the apartment. James looked down at his worn shoes, thinking hard. Then he remembered something from his Marine days. His surgeon always said, when an opportunity presents itself, a Marine takes it. Yes, James said, his voice stronger now. Yes to both. Thank you. Dr. Williams clapped his hands together once. Excellent. Let's get the paperwork started right away. For the next hour, James filled out forms. His hand was stiff from not writing much in recent years. But Dr. Williams and Officer Ramirez were patient. They explained everything clearly and helped when needed. By late afternoon, it was done. James had been approved for the veteran's first apartment. He would move in tomorrow. The job at the police station would start Monday. Officer Ramirez even arranged for a bus pass to help him get around. As they finished the last form, there was another knock at the door. A young woman peeked in. Excuse me, Dr. Williams. There's someone here asking about Mr. Wilson. Dr. Williams looked surprised. Who is it? The young woman hesitated. A Mrs. Pendleton. She said she needs to speak with him. James looked confused. I don't know any Mrs. Pendleton. Officer Ramirez's face darkened. That's the woman from the park. The one who called the police on you. James was shocked. Why would she come here? Dr. Williams stood up. I'll tell her to leave. But James held up his hand. No, wait. I want to hear what she has to say. Dr. Williams and Officer Ramirez exchanged worried looks. Are you sure? Officer Ramirez asked. You don't owe her anything. James nodded. I'm sure. Let her come in. The young woman disappeared, and a moment later, the woman from the park entered the office. She looked very different now. Her face was not angry but nervous. She clutched her purse tightly. Mr. Wilson, she said, her voice much quieter than before. I need to talk to you. Mrs. Pendleton stood in the doorway, looking very different from the angry woman in the park. Her shoulders were no longer pushed back with pride. She didn't look anyone directly in the eye. Her fancy purse hung at her side, and she kept twisting her wedding ring nervously. May I come in? She asked quietly. Officer Ramirez stood up straight, clearly protective of James. Mrs. Pendleton, this is highly unusual. Please, Mrs. Pendleton said. Just 5 minutes. Dr. Williams looked at James. It's up to you. James nodded. She can come in. Mrs. Pendleton stepped into the office. She looked around as if unsure where to stand. You can sit down, James said, pointing to the empty chair. Mrs. Pendleton sat carefully on the edge of the chair. She placed her purse in her lap and took a deep breath. Mr. Wilson, she began, I came to apologize. This was not what anyone expected. The room went quiet. After what happened in the park, she continued, I went home. I was angry. I felt like no one understood my concerns. Officer Ramirez crossed her arms, clearly not impressed. Mrs. Pendleton went on. When I got home, my husband asked what was wrong. I told him about the homeless man in the park and how the police wouldn't remove you. She paused, then said, my husband got very quiet. Then he asked if the man was a veteran. I said yes, but I didn't see why that mattered. Her voice got shaky. My husband, he got very upset with me. He went to his office and came back with a photograph. It was him in uniform. He was in Vietnam too. James looked surprised. Your husband is a veteran. Mrs. Pendleton nodded. Yes. He never talks about it. I knew he served, but he never shares stories or goes to veterans' events. I didn't know. Her voice trailed off. Didn't know what? James asked. I didn't know he was homeless for almost a year when he first came back, she said. He told me that today. He said when he returned, he couldn't handle being around people. Loud noises scared him. He couldn't keep a job. His family didn't understand. He ended up on the streets. The room was silent as everyone took in this information. He said if it wasn't for a police officer who helped him get into a VA program, he might have died out there. Mrs. Pendleton continued. That program helped him turn his life around. He went back to school, became an accountant. That's how we met, at the firm where I used to work. She looked at James directly for the first time. My husband said I needed to find you and apologize. He said I have no idea what veterans go through, what they sacrifice. He's right. I don't. James was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Thank you for coming to say this. It couldn't have been easy." Mrs. Pendleton shook her head. No, it wasn't. But it was the right thing to do. She reached into her purse and took out an envelope. My husband also wanted me to give you this. It's a check for the Veterans First program. He said it won't fix things, but it might help another veteran like you. Dr. Williams took the envelope, looking inside briefly. His eyes widened. This is very generous, Mrs. Pendleton. It's the least we can do, she said. Then she turned back to James. I know you probably can't forgive how I treated you. I was wrong, and I'm truly sorry. James thought about all the people who had looked past him over the years, all the cruel words and angry stares. It would be easy to stay angry. Life's too short to hold grudges, James finally said. I accept your apology. Mrs. Pendleton's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. She stood up, straightening her jacket. My husband would like to meet you sometime, if you're willing. He doesn't talk to many other veterans. James nodded. I'd like that. Mrs. Pendleton moved toward the door. I should let you get back to your meeting. Thank you for seeing me. As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. Mr. Wilson, I won't forget this lesson. And I promise you, I'll do better. After she left, the room was quiet for a moment. Well, Dr. Williams finally said, I didn't see that coming. Me neither, said James. For the first time in years, he felt something new. Hope. The next morning was sunny and warm. James woke up early at the shelter. Today was moving day. After breakfast, he packed his few belongings into his backpack. Everything he owned fit inside. He felt nervous but excited. At 9 o'clock, Dr. Williams arrived in his blue car to pick up James. Together they drove to the Veterans First Apartments. The building wasn't fancy, but it was clean and well kept. It had been an old hotel that was fixed up for the program. Here we are, Dr. Williams said as they parked. Your new home, at least for now. Inside, they met Ms. Carter, the building manager. She was a middle-aged woman with a friendly smile. Welcome, Mr. Wilson, she said, shaking his hand. We're happy to have you join us. Ms. Carter gave James a tour of the building. There was a shared laundry room, a small gym, and a community room with a TV and some books. Then she took him to apartment 302. This is yours, she said, handing him the key. James took the key with shaking hands. It had been so long since he had his own place. Ms. Carter opened the door, and they went inside. The apartment was small but clean. It had a living room with a couch and small table, a tiny kitchen with a refrigerator and stove, a bathroom with a shower, and a bedroom with a made bed. There were even some towels and basic supplies. The program provides starter items, Ms. Carter explained. Sheets, towels, some food in the refrigerator, soap, and other basics. James walked slowly through the rooms, hardly believing this was for him. He touched the couch, looked in the refrigerator, turned on the shower. Everything worked. What do you think? Dr. Williams asked. James had to clear his throat before he could speak. It's perfect. Thank you. Ms. Carter smiled. I'll let you get settled in. Here's your welcome packet with all the information you need. My office is on the first floor if you have questions." After she left, James sat down on the couch. He bounced a little, feeling the softness. "I haven't slept on a real bed in over a year," he said quietly. Dr. Williams sat in the chair across from him. "Well, you'll sleep on one tonight, and every night from now on, if things go well." James looked at the welcome packet. It had rules for the building, information about the program, and contact numbers for different services. "I won't mess this up," James said firmly. "I'm going to make this work." Dr. Williams nodded. "I know you will. And you're not alone. You have people supporting you now." There was a knock at the door. James looked surprised. Who could be visiting already? Dr. Williams opened the door. Officer Rodriguez stood there with a large paper bag. "Hope I'm not interrupting," Officer Rodriguez said. "I heard Mr. Wilson was moving in today. Thought I'd bring a housewarming gift." He handed the bag to James. Inside were groceries: bread, peanut butter, canned soup, fruit, and other simple foods. "This should help until you get your first paycheck," Officer Rodriguez said. James was touched. "Thank you. This is very kind." Officer Rodriguez smiled. "Just paying it forward. My grandfather was a veteran too. He always taught us to help others when we can." Another knock came at the door. This time, it was Officer Ramirez. "Sorry I'm late," she said. She was carrying a small box. "This is for you, Mr. Wilson. It's a prepaid cell phone. Basic model, nothing fancy, but it will help you stay in touch with work and appointments." James felt overwhelmed by all this kindness. For years, people had looked past him or treated him with fear or disgust. Now, suddenly, so many people were helping him. "I don't know what to say," James admitted. "You don't need to say anything," Officer Ramirez told him. "Just know that things can get better, and they will." After the officers left, Dr. Williams helped James put away the groceries. As they worked, Dr. Williams said, "Oh, I almost forgot. I have one more surprise for you." He pulled out an envelope from his pocket and handed it to James. Inside was an old photograph, worn at the edges. It showed a young woman with a baby. James stared at the picture, his hands trembling. "Where did you get this?" "You mentioned your daughter yesterday," Dr. Williams said. "With your permission, our social worker made some calls. We found her, James. She lives about an hour from here with her husband and 2 children." James couldn't speak. Tears filled his eyes. "She wants to see you," Dr. Williams said gently. "When you're ready." 2 weeks had passed since James moved into the veteran's first apartment. His life had changed in ways he could hardly believe. He had completed his first week working at the police station. The job was simple: cleaning, fixing small things, and taking care of the grounds. But James took pride in doing it well. Today was special. James stood in front of the mirror in his bathroom, carefully combing his hair. He had a new haircut and a clean shave. He was wearing new clothes, a blue button-up shirt and khaki pants that Officer Ramirez had helped him buy. There was a knock at his door. James took a deep breath and opened it. Dr. Williams stood there smiling. "Ready for the big day?" Dr. Williams asked. James nodded, though his hands were shaking slightly. "As ready as I'll ever be." Today, James was going to see his daughter Sarah for the first time in 5 years. They had spoken twice on the phone since Dr. Williams found her. The first call had been short and awkward. The second had been better, with both of them crying a little. Dr. Williams drove James to a small restaurant in a nearby town. It was nothing fancy, just a family place with good food. Sarah had chosen it. "Are you nervous?" Dr. Williams asked as they parked. "Terrified," James admitted. "What if she's still angry? What if she doesn't like the person I've become?" Dr. Williams put a hand on James's shoulder. "She agreed to meet you. That's the first step. Just be honest with her." They went inside. James spotted her immediately. Sarah was sitting in a booth by the window. She looked so much like her mother. Next to her was a man who must be her husband, and across from them were two children, a boy about 8 and a girl around 5. When Sarah saw James, she stood up. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Sarah came forward and hugged her father. James held her tight, tears in his eyes. "I missed you, Dad," Sarah said softly. "I missed you too, sweetheart," James replied. "Every single day." Sarah introduced James to her husband Mark and their children, Emma and Jack. The children were shy at first, but soon warmed up to their grandfather. Dr. Williams said goodbye, promising to pick James up in 2 hours. Over lunch, they talked about many things. James was honest about his struggles with drinking after coming home from the war, losing his job, and becoming homeless. He told Sarah how sorry he was for pushing her away. "I was ashamed," he explained. "I didn't want you to see me like that." Sarah reached across the table and took his hand. "I wish you had let me help you." "I know that now," James said, "but I'm getting better. I have a place to live, a job, and people who are helping me." Mark spoke up. "Sarah told me what happened in the park, how that woman called the police on you." James shook his head. "That turned out to be a blessing in disguise. If she hadn't called the police, I might not be sitting here with you now." Emma, the little girl, looked up from her chicken nuggets. "Grandpa, are you a soldier?" "I was," James said with a small smile. "A long time ago. My teacher says soldiers are heroes," Emma said. James didn't know what to say to that. Sarah saved him by changing the subject. "Dad, we want you to come to dinner at our house next weekend. Would that be okay?" James felt a lump in his throat. "I'd like that very much." As they finished their meal, Sarah handed James a small gift bag. Inside was a framed picture of Sarah's family. "So you can keep us close," she explained. On the drive back to his apartment, James was quiet, looking at the photo. "Good visit?" Dr. Williams asked. "The best," James replied. "She wants me to come to dinner next weekend." Dr. Williams smiled. "That's wonderful, James." When they got back to the apartment building, James was surprised to see several people waiting outside. There was Officer Rodriguez and Officer Ramirez, Miss Carter from the building, and even Mr. Pendleton, the husband of the woman from the park who had become a friend over the past 2 weeks. "What's all this?" James asked. "A little welcome party," Officer Rodriguez said. "We wanted to celebrate your first 2 weeks of success." Inside, they had cake and coffee. People shared stories and laughed together. James looked around at all these people who had come into his life so suddenly. He thought about how just 2 weeks ago, he had been alone on a park bench with no hope for the future. "Everything okay?" Ms. Carter asked, seeing his thoughtful expression. "Yes," James said with a smile. "For the first time in a long time, everything is okay." He put the picture of his daughter's family on his shelf, right where he could see it every day. It was a reminder that no matter how dark things seemed, there was always hope for a better tomorrow.